Now, we're going to shift gears here from the North Korea situation for a while, and we're going to go back into food self-reliance because this is a key technology. Now, I believe there are 5 key technologies for Liberty that are all decentralized, non-controlled technologies that actually, they help you be healthier, they help you be more free and more self-reliant. And one of those technologies, and probably the key, is aquaponics. And I've become a huge fan of aquaponics. I'm building my own system, but where I've learned much of that is from this man who's in the studio with us right now. His name is Rob Nash. He is the founder of AustinAquaponics.com. He's also a representative for the American, is it the American Aquaponics?
The National.
The National Association. So welcome to the show, Rob.
Excellent. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you here. And by the way, you're a really awesome teacher.
Well, thanks.
Your course, I took your Saturday course.
Yep.
I learned a lot.
Awesome. Glad to have you.
You're very good at it. So tell the audience what you do, because you're a hands-on guy who's having a lot of commercial success with growing food.
Yeah. Well, you know, about 7 years ago, we decided I'm going to give this farming thing a try. And in researching the best sustainable methods out there, we discovered aquaponics, which seemed to be a perfect fit for us. I had already been keeping koi pond in the backyard, and had experimented with hydroponics, and so they were a natural combination. And so we've been at it commercially for about 5 years now. And just through demand and multiple requests, we started doing the backyard trainings. So many people had found a new interest in it.
Yeah.
And it's just blossomed from there. I can't keep up with the phone calls.
Now you have huge hoop houses. I was there. You have a raft system. You've got grow beds. You've got wicking beds. You're growing the most beautiful lettuce I've ever seen. And you're actually selling this in grocers all over town, right?
Right now, we're really limited to our one farmer's market there in the Bee Cave area, the Lone Star Farmer's Market.
Because everybody's buying it up right there, huh?
Correct. And the greens, as you saw that day, everybody's in this greens movement right now. And it's all about kale and chard. And, of course, the lettuces always do really well, too. Yeah. But we're in a few, 2 to be exact, local restaurants, Italian restaurants, that just can't get enough of our basil. And so that's our biggest commercial market.
So are you now seeing, I mean, you've been doing this for many years, but are you seeing a surge in interest from people in this food technology?
Absolutely. You know, aquaponics has officially been on the map for, I'd say, 6 or 7 years in terms of small scale or backyard personal food production. But in the last 12, 16 months, it has just exploded in terms of backyard hobby gardeners wanting to adopt this as a means to grow food.
Why do you think that is? What are you hearing?
I would say mostly because of in Texas, it's mostly because of the climate. You know, you hear all the time, if gardening were any more difficult, it would be impossible. And so aquaponics has proven to overcome some of the summer challenges as well as in the wintertime. But I would think that with the food safety and security issues that we have, and, you know, the quote unquote broken food system that we're having to deal with, I would think more and more people are looking towards food production really to save on their food bill. Yeah. But more or less to salvage their gardening hobby, which, again, has become frustrating to many people in Central Texas.
But I also noticed that aquaponics really seems to appeal to men a lot, where like soil gardening seems to be women do more of that for whatever reason. But I think aquaponics, there's more gadgetry involved, and it's kind of cool to build it, you know, guys like that.
I think you're right on the money there. I think aquaponics really gets most men's tinkering bone, if you will. Yeah, right. And then, of course, the wife is always supportive because, hey, it gives him something to do, keeps him in the house or in the backyard. Yeah, it keeps him out of trouble, is what you're saying. And it really, once you've overcome the initial cost, it's really a low-cost hobby, if you will. So what a better way for a family to spend some time than for the man to be able to build something and watch it go, and then the ladies to be able to bring something to the food table.
Yeah, and it's incredible because you don't even have to really bend over that much. You know, a lot of people don't like just the physical bending of gardening. These grow beds in aquaponics are at waist height. You can set them almost at any height you want.
Correct.
I've even heard of people in wheelchairs running aquaponic systems because they can do it. They can physically do it.
That is correct. Yeah, you get a lot of elderly folks or in one way or another disabled, and they really do enjoy the raised beds. And in a wheelchair access scenario, usually there's room underneath the beds that you could wheel up to. So it really is more like a tabletop garden, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It does take out a lot of the bending over and the back aches. There's no weeding.
No weeding at all, yeah. I remember you showed me weeding. It was like 1 second.
I think you may have saw the
There's
one
an
weed
actual one weed, yes.
Right. So, you know, it's not zero weeding, but one weed versus 1 day of weeding, it's pretty cool.
Now, the other thing that I really appreciate about you in particular, but also Troy, who we had as a guest earlier, but the entire aquaponic community, is it feels very open source to me. I don't find a lot of people saying, oh, I'm not going to share my secrets with you. You have to pay me $20,000 to have my secret patented system X. You know, no, aquaponics is like, we want to share the information and empower you with the knowledge that you need to grow your own food, and we hope you can empower others.
Yeah, you do see a lot of that. I believe that aquaponics was really born during this information age, if you will. And so it's probably one of the first new substantial things that come along that, again, that was in this information age where everything that comes along is put out on the internet. So we're all learning collectively as this methodology emerges.
Yeah, I read that at some point somebody decided, well, we should throw worms into the grow beds, you know, red wigglers. And then suddenly the fish poo problem, the buildup problem was solved.
Correct.
Like, who came up with that?
Well, really, I can't tell you exactly which one person, but collectively there was some back and forth on the subject. And, you know, the idea was a great idea, but the organic movement, and I'm sure you probably keep up with this.
Yes.
There's so many regulations about raw manures and whatnot. We were really unsure what they were going to allow us to do in organic food production.
Yeah.
So worms had really remained kind of a novel idea. And then once the industry as a whole just said, look, we're going to call this all natural, and we're going to skip this OCERT, if you will,
yeah, right.
and forget about sharing our profits with the government or the USDA. And so they just went ahead and started throwing the worms in. And then almost immediately we got reports of such good results. And then, like you said, we wind up not even having to clean the gravel anymore.
That's what's amazing to me about this system. And for those of you listening, this is the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams filling in for Alex today. And yes, we're going to continue to cover North Korea and other things in the next hour. But right now, we've got Rob Nash here from AustinAquaponics.com, who is an expert, a hands-on expert on aquaponic systems. And I believe this technology is absolutely crucial for liberty, for health. With Troy, we talked about the importance how you can put minerals into the system that are actually taken up by the plants instead of being flushed downstream and wasted.
Yeah.
That's another huge advantage, isn't it?
It's incredible. You know, you can use pretty much all of your organic supplements that you may have become accustomed to in organic gardening. And it really, like you said, stays in the system and is pretty much 100% absorbed by the plants. There's really nowhere for it to go. You know, we do have a closed loop system. The only water we add is due to evaporation or plant uptake. And so you're pretty much assured that everything you put in there is going to stay with your plants.
Yeah, I've heard that estimates are it uses anywhere from 1/10 to maybe sometimes 1/20 of conventional agriculture water.
Correct. Yeah, you hear anywhere, the figures from anywhere to 2% to 10%. And I'm going to say that that depends on what traditional agriculture you're comparing it to, whether it's a rice field or old school drip irrigation in a raised beds.
That makes a lot of sense. And I also think in terms of the cost issues, there's some upfront cost to it, but when you go to the grocery store now, folks, you are paying $4 for an organic red pepper, sometimes $5 for one red pepper. You can grow $1,000 worth of red peppers for almost nothing once you get the system set up. I mean, you can grow back huge dollars.
Literally. You should be able to see a return on your investment, regardless of what system you went for, whether you bought a turnkey system online or built one yourself. You should see a return on that investment within the first year. Like you say, with prices going up, I've seen bell peppers as high as $7 a piece.
That's crazy. Yeah. But also there's another element here. I don't know if you've talked about this with your students, but there is the living energy of foods, the bioenergy of foods. And when something is dead, you know, it's been pulled from the ground and it's been shipped and it's been put in the grocery store and it looks dead, looks like it got run over by a parade or something. That does not have the same life energy as fresh, living food that you pull right out, you know, piece of lettuce, make a salad of living lettuce. Yeah,
well, you know the old saying, fresh is best. But there's really nothing better than going out and picking food from your garden and taking it straight to the kitchen and having it that evening.
And even fish. That you can harvest fish and have a fish that evening.
That's correct. Suffice it to say, anytime that the wife says, well, it's your night to cook, what are you going to have? I come back with a couple of fish and some fresh greens, and that's for sure what we're having that evening.
Yeah, good idea. So you are also, I understand that you You sell pre-made systems to people who kind of want to take the shortcut, but I get the feeling that you would prefer people build their own.
You know, I say the same thing with growing food. I've always said I get a lot more satisfaction out of showing someone how to grow their own super nutritious food than to sell them these, you know, $3 heads of lettuce each week.
Right.
It's a great way to pay the bills for me, but I think most people would get that same satisfaction out of growing their own. So yes, we do offer turnkey systems, but I really encourage people to learn how to do this for themselves. That way they're not limited to whatever one size system they bought. They would have an understanding of what it takes to put one of these things together, and then the sky's the limit. You know, they can take it all the way up to a commercial scale if they wanted to.
'Cause that's what I hear from everybody who starts this. They get the bug and they want more grow beds, more and more and more, because it's so fascinating, so rewarding. And, you know, you're going to save really a small fortune, because one of the news items that we've covered here on InfoWars in the past is the droughts, the weather radicalization that's happened across the planet. You know, the Midwest droughts of last year have almost collapsed some of the grain supply in the Midwest, which is going to cause food prices to spike and skyrocket, actually starting right now.
Right.
You're already seeing it in the stores. So food is not going to get cheaper, but aquaponics, in contrast to grocery foods, always gets cheaper in comparison.
I would have to agree, sure.
The economics just make sense.
Right. Yeah. Again, don't let the sticker price of a new system shock you. Although I must say there are some out there that are a little overpriced, in my opinion. But I'm going to assume that that's production cost, shipping, and materials that they used. And the systems that we like to advise people to build really are do-it-yourself or bought from local hydroponic shops such as Troy's Shop. And with this new aquaponic movement, a lot of the hydroponic shops have embraced aquaponics. And so it's a great place to start if you don't know, you know, where to start.
Yeah. Let's talk about food freedom a little bit, because another story that we've covered here is in places like Michigan, a woman named Julie Bass was threatened with 90 days of jail time for having a garden in her own front yard.
Wow.
And because of the activism of InfoWars and my website, Natural News, and others, we were able to get the city of, I think, Oak Park, Michigan, to back off of that. Was it a year ago, or roughly a year ago? But there are other cases where home gardeners are being oppressed and threatened for growing food in their front yard because the neighbors want this sterilized, weed-free, artificial turf look. They don't know that they need to be growing food.
Yeah.
They don't realize that yet. What are your thoughts on food freedom?
Well, you know, I think everybody should grow as much food as they can squeeze in their yard, front or back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming that that had something to do with HOA rules and
It was a city rule.
Aesthetics.
It wasn't even an HOA. It was a city ordinance.
And I'm guessing this had nothing to do with aquaponics.
No, that was just growing cucumbers in soil.
Well,
and she was teaching her son to garden. You know, how dare you teach your children?
Well, if I were on any other show, I'd say, well, don't get me started about politics and city regulations and whatnot. But I think you know where I'm going with that. Unfortunately, there is a lot of that. And I think that's why more and more people don't grow their own food, is because there are challenges. It's either aesthetics or it's, you know, water use issues, or the rest of us that are chasing our tail trying to make a living just don't have the time to devote to a garden to keep it going.
Yeah, that's you know, commonly the case. But when I drive down a neighborhood, let's say in Austin, I'm looking at a neighborhood like the one right next to your place. I go from your place, which is growing food, it's very organic, it's health and nourishment, and then right across the street, there is this artificial neighborhood with an HOA, all these clean lawns, everybody there dying from cancer and heart disease and diabetes and spending millions of dollars on pharmaceuticals and mammograms. And what they need to do is cross the freaking street and go to you and eat their way to health. And they don't even realize it.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, you're correct, and I do agree. In fact, I have a gentleman from that very neighborhood who, because of his HOA, is actually willing to share my property, be it investment or not, to keep that opportunity. But just because he's so limited in what he can do, he's going to come over to my place and share on my property to continue his gardening.
Oh, good. And so you're helping your neighbors there. Yeah. Rob Nash here from Austin Aquaponics, folks. Now, the InfoWars audience did crash Troy's website in the last segment. They may crash yours, too. Just warning you in advance.
Incredible.
AustinAquaponics.com. And there's a lot of great information there Another website that I like is the Aquaponic Source. That's Sylvia's website, right?
Right. Well, and I prefer to direct people to the Aquaponic Community Garden or gardeningcommunity.com.
Okay, go ahead and give that website out.
Which is the forum. And again, it is Sylvia Bernstein's website, but it is called the Aquaponic Gardeningcommunity.com. And you'll find that as a forum. And I think as of right now, there's just over 9,000 members on there. And majority of them are backyarders or beginners. But I will say that it's probably the biggest collection of aquaponic experts that you'll find directly communicating with beginners. And so there's a ton of good information on there.
That's great. And I think also the key concept to get across to people is you're not using chemicals to grow plants. You are growing an ecosystem. There are more bacteria in there than anything. You've got bacteria, worms, fish, and plants all together in basically a closed loop system. You got fish food, of course, but basically a closed loop system that is self-sustaining, self-cleaning, self-supporting. That's a breakthrough.
It's pretty incredible, you know, and it's funny because really all we're doing is nurturing nature's biological processes.
Right.
We haven't really created anything new.
The earth does this every day.
We've just created a man-made way of harboring all of those benefits. And I think the more we understand about the biology of soil and the importance of funguses and bacteria, the more we're able to utilize them to our benefit.
But it also shows you the contrast to conventional farming, which is really artificial food. If you take conventional farming, they're throwing these seeds in the soil, and then they're only putting 3 nutrients on it, NPK, and that's it. And it's artificial food without the minerals that are supposed to be present, and without the probiotics, without the healthy soils, everything.
Yeah, and as we, you know, in organic farming, the current saying is you're feeding the soil, not the plant. And what they're talking about is the biological activity that's going on in there. And without all of those funguses, bacterias, and the sugars and whatnot to keep them thriving, really the plant's never going to do anything. Like you say, you can force feed it the NPs and Ks.
We got to go to a break here, Rob, but we'll be right back. This is the Alex Jones Show. We're talking to Rob Nash here at Austin Aquaponics. This is Mike Adams. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more information.
I had tried everything. I'd cut back the amount of food I was eating. I was lifting weights and jogging, but nothing was working. My body was literally starving for minerals and trace elements as well as key vitamins. And as soon as I had that, I immediately could eat half of what I was eating previously and be satisfied. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com.
All right, we're back. This is the Alex Jones Show. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying all of the information. Our job is to inform you, to do a little bit of entertainment, but mostly inform you of the things that matter, that really matter in your life. And feeding yourself is key, because if you don't have food freedom, you are essentially a slave. And a lot of people come into aquaponics, which is the subject of our continuing interview here with Rob Nash of AustinAquaponics.com. A lot of people come to it from a point of view of freedom. Others come to it from a point of view of health. Others just want to save money on their groceries. Some just want to tinker with food and grow their own medicine and not have, you know, the government tell them what they can or can't buy in terms of medicine. So there are lots of reasons to get into it. But when I was there at your class there, Rob, because I took your training course, and I'd like to train with you more, by the way.
Sure.
I saw a really nice mix of people. Some people, everybody had already been into some kind of food, but there was one couple there that was part of an e-commerce company. They're like high-tech people who were getting into self-reliant food. Are you seeing like a big diverse cross of, you know, all kinds of people who are interested in it?
Absolutely. I would say primarily a few years ago, really it was kind of the college student crowd, the ones that were heavy into research, obviously into healthy eating, and the locavore movement. But now it's really spread, like you said, a wide, diverse crowd. I'd say the baby boomers are probably outdoing the college crowd at this point, because you know how they are. They get locked in on any subject, and all of a sudden, you know, that's their new focus. But you do see a lot of diversity.
That's interesting because I think also aquaponics is less physically demanding than soil gardening by far.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns I've had about a lot of people who are, we call preppers or survivalists, that they're buying seeds, which is very important. It's very, you know, it's a great strategy. But if you've never really gone out there and sowed those seeds and grown food and pulled the weeds, you're not going to be able to just jump into it and do it overnight. It's hard work.
Sure.
So aquaponics is sort of, it's an easier thing you can ease into now, and you can do it even when you're, you know, an elderly person. You can handle it, no problem.
Yeah, literally. There's really no heavy lifting involved. Once you've got your media in your beds, you know, the biggest thing you're going to lift would be, say, a 20-pound tomato plant if you, you know, if you let it go that far.
Yeah, I saw you had a tomato plant that was like 20 feet tall that you had strung almost like a vine.
Yeah, and I think you were there 3 weeks ago, so we're at about 26 or 8 feet at this point.
That's insane.
Yeah, they get incredible growth.
A lot of people don't realize that in this system, because the nutrient density is so high, the plant density can also be much, much higher. So in the same square footage, you can grow like 300% more food.
Well, they say you can safely plant your plants at least twice as close as what is recommended. So if it says 1 foot, you can do them every 6 inches. Literally, the plants just aren't fighting for nutrients, like you said. So the root base doesn't have to reach as far, and there's really no issue with that. Really what becomes is just that there's plenty of room for the plant to grow, that it actually has access to the sunlight, and there's room for fruit to, you know, to be harvested. So
got to have the light, of course. But this also works in almost any climate because, you know, here in Texas, we all are trying to get rid of heat.
Right.
You can do that with the right shade cloths and systems like that. But in northern climates, all you need is a covering. You can grow food year-round in aquaponics.
That's correct. By heating the water a bit, you can keep the plant roots happy, and that'll, you know, basically trick the plant into believing it's not as cold as it is outside.
Good point. It's not the leaf temperature, it's not the ambient air temperature that really affects the production of the plant. It's the root temperature.
Correct. Yeah, they say the root zone is the brains of the plant, if you will. And so, again, by keeping it warm, the rest of the plant just keeps on metabolizing its sugars and whatnot, and so you get this vibrant growth.
Now, a lot of people listening, I know they've got a lot of questions, but, and we got to go to a break here in a second, but you can even grow sweet potatoes in these systems, right?
Yes, correct. Almost anything but white potatoes and or carrots. You know,
the carrots don't physically
They don't really like to push their way around in the heavy medias.
Jakari Jackson here, and I want to talk to you for a second about water. You know about ProPure, our flagship water purification system, but check out some of our portable water filter products at InfoWarsStore.com. The clearly filtered water pitcher. Also, for those of you on the go, we have the Athlete Edition filtered water bottle and the RAD Eliminator Pro filtered sports bottle that removes radiation. And keep in mind, we have replacement filters for all of these products. The ever-popular grab-and-go bag favorite, the Life Straw, the Crystal Quest shower filter system, and the Aquapod kit, great for mass storage of water. And while you're at the InfoWars shop, pick up a copy of our latest book, 31 Days to Survival. You can find all this and more at the InfoWarsStore.com, and don't forget it's your support that funds our operation. Sign up for our free newsletter at InfoWars.com/newsletter.
But here to bring some sanity to all of our minds is Rob Nash from AustinAquaponics.com, who's continuing to teach us about aquaponics, a technology, a decentralized, self-replicating, peer-to-peer food technology system that I'm really excited about. And along those lines, when I say peer-to-peer, what I'm referring to is your suggestion that we should share worms and share the bacteria in the soil and help our neighbors get going with their systems.
Sure. Well, and on that note, you know, these systems do take a while to mature. Like you said, there is 3 things we're growing: fish, plants, and bacteria. Bacteria are present in nature, and they'll show up just out of the blue. But if it's like a friendship bread, if you were to introduce just a small piece of the gravel or the worms for an inoculant, their system will be ready for this vigor faster.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the interesting part about this is your system won't really function correctly until the bacteria have multiplied to the point where they can convert ammonia to nitrite and then to nitrate.
You really have been doing your homework, yes.
I took your class. I'm telling you, you got it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and there's 2 different basic strains of bacteria. One converts ammonia to nitrate, and the other converts nitrate to nitrite. So you got to allow that to happen, and then it's ready.
That's correct. Yeah, you don't really just start by throwing some fish in a bucket and then feeding that water to plants. Like you stated, the fish waste is basically almost pure ammonia, which is not beneficial to a plant. In fact, it's probably harmful.
Yeah.
But once you have the established bacteria to convert that to a nitrite and then a nitrate, then you actually have an ammonium nitrate or straight fertilizer. And as well,
Don't let the government hear you say ammonium nitrate.
well, honestly, I'm using that a little loose. Ammonium nitrate would be a bad byproduct of having too low of a pH. So you're right. Let's not call that the end result that we're shooting
They
for.
will call aquaponics terrorism very soon.
Right.
Right. How
Hopefully
dare
not.
you? You're producing explosives.
Well, you'll have an explosive garden, I can say that. And I tell you, if they were to go to our About Us page and look at the pictures of the giant kale, that's one of the photos we get the
Yes.
most comments of. And you want to talk about some explosive growth.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, if you scroll down just a little bit down there, it is probably the picture that is my
Keep going, guys. Oh, there it is. Dinosaur kale. Look,
Claim
it's
to
like
fame, if you
taller
will.
than you.
my wife's caption to that picture is "Honey, I shrunk you" amongst the kale plants.
That's crazy.
And a lot of people would assume that those plants probably were very tough or bitter. Honestly, those are some of the nicest and most tender kale leaves I've ever produced.
Oh, and they're loaded with nutrition and anti-cancer nutrients, all kinds of things.
Yeah, kale is one of the latest to be deemed a superfood.
Yes.
And we just can't grow enough of it. The demand out there is incredible.
Oh, I agree. And so you are essentially in that picture. For those of you on the radio, you can see this on prisonplanet.tv if you remember. That picture, it's like you're actually growing money and medicine on trees. I mean,
True.
it's
Yeah.
like growing revenue and health.
I would say that kale has been one of the best products in our entire efforts.
Nice.
Each of those plants there was probably worth, anywhere from $12 to $35 just if I were to harvest just that one plant.
And they keep growing
And
back.
then you come
the
back
leaves.
and harvest again next week. Now, those right there were probably 2 months overdue to be harvested.
Yeah.
That was back in the days when I had more kale than I did market, which is absolutely not the case today.
So you could grow like unlimited quantities of kale probably and find buyers right now.
Absolutely. And with this local movement that really is in effect, people have been talking about this locavore movement for years now, almost 6 or so that I know of. But I would say right now there's more restaurants and local distributors clamoring for local produce.
Oh, they should be, because this is what makes their food taste good, look good, nice texture, better nutrition, you name it. Rob, Nash, we are out of time. But AustinAquaponics.com has now been officially crashed. Your website is down because of the audience. Yes, I'm sorry to say that, my friend. But thanks for joining us today. Great to have you on.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.